Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 429 for March 22nd, 2026. I'm your host, TomMaster99. With me tonight is one Mr. DBQ Hams. DB, how's it going?
It's going okay. It's much better than all the weather from last week. And we got plenty to talk about tonight. So glad to be here.
Yes, lots to talk about. And also one Mr. Game Logic. Game, how you doing?
Good. Glad to be here with you guys as usual on a Sunday evening.
Yes, we are closing in on the first quarter of the year. So we should be getting some finance news here, I think, in the next few weeks to a month. And potentially, I guess, fiscal year end for some companies too. But here on the podcast, we're going to go through our segment 1 main GX stories, then jump into segment 2 with main news headlines, and finally wrap up with our regular rundown, and round robin. But before we get to all that, I think Game Logic, you have a correction from last week, I'm assuming, about Project Helix.
Oh yeah, so I was running the podcast back and caught that that last week when I made the comment about when has the higher priced console ever in a generation. I said, when has the higher price console ever been successful? And that's not what I meant. What I meant was, when has the highest price console ever actually been the biggest seller? Consoles will obviously be successful across the spectrum, right, of performance metrics.
I remember when you talked about that, right? Because my first thought was PlayStation 3 and 360 by the end of the era, PlayStation 3 had outsold it, but it was not really deemed successful until late in its generation.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd say yes by many others. I deemed PlayStation 3 successful, despite the fact that it was it's kind of funny because you're bringing up an A dynamic, right? In a dynamic is kind of like, nobody regards the consoles as being successful unless you're number one, right? And I think that's much like we have this thing going on with Crimson Desert, right? Which at least the last time I checked, and I haven't been checking every day, but was at a 78 on Metacritic, and people act like that's unsuccessful. And we have to keep in mind that we actually need games that score in the high 70s and in low 80s. That doesn't mean that a game's not successful. It just means that it's not a game for everyone, but it can still be thoroughly enjoyed by people who are fans of that particular genre or particular design angle. But just to harp on that one correction, I did not mean to say that Project Helix has no chance of being successful simply because it costs more, potentially, than the PlayStation 6 or the Nintendo Switch 2. It just means I don't expect it to sell as many units as the lower price consoles, because historically that hasn't happened, at least not in the modern age. Maybe in the 20th century, before the turn of the century, potentially I haven't dug that deeply, but that was my intent. So I wanted to kind of correct that and revise it.
Nice. Yeah, no problem there. So you can tell me that 3DO didn't win its race back in the day?
That cracks open a whole other can of worms, because of what the market supported and then the market didn't support, and we're entering an era where things are different but the same, but different but the same, right? So it'll be interesting to see if history repeats itself.
Yes, we will see. And also welcome, it's just Henry Heck and the Real Innate to the chat. Thanks for joining us tonight. All right, let's jump into segment 1 with the main GX stories. Up first is myself and Mr. DBQ Hams. We jumped into Nintendo Switch 2's handheld boost mode boost update this past week. It looks like we each did. Well, DB had 3 and I had a couple of. Actually, I did have 3 too, but I didn't put the other one down just because I don't know, there really wasn't much of a difference. But I did see a difference in a couple of games that I did play. The first one was MLB The Show 23, which I picked up a few years ago. And I did see a good bit of difference. There's not as much jagginess. The resolution is a lot better. I don't see the slowdown either like I used to. And I think that was even evident when I first got the Switch 2. But there was a little bit of slowdown still here and there during the kind of the, I won't say cutscenes, but kind of in between, batting There was like kind of slow down for some reason, just when they're showing the kind of the animation of the person like walking up to the the batter's box and stuff like that. It was a little weird, but other than that, before the gameplay was fine, but it was just those kind of weird in between things that would happen. But yeah, it looks like it's doing it for at least MLB The Show so far. DB, you have a couple games here that looks like it's maybe.
Yeah, I played around with a number of different games. I played MLB The Show 22 as well, so I was curious on how your experience with 23 was. I didn't put it on here because I'm spoiled by playing PlayStation 4 and 5 MLB The Shows, and yes, it runs fine. It still looks so. I'll be curious to see what a real MLB The Show for Switch 2 ends up looking like. Hopefully next year we get a native Switch 2 version, or even later this season if it comes around playoff time. That would be fun too. I played a couple games that I had put in way back in the beginning of the Switch 2. One of them being Wavetail, which is Thunderful Games. Thunderful Games just released Planet of Lana 2. Wavetail is an indie kind of adventure game. It ran fine, but looked really jaggy on Switch 2 in handheld, and now it looks bright and crisp and exactly what it should be. Also played some Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. So that was one of the ones I played right away on the Switch 2 because it was a little laggy on the Switch 1, and performance was always just fine, but it looked man. Sorry to spike the levels there.
Up that you couldn't believe
it. Man, it looked rough. Let's say yes, it totally looked exactly like my cough. But it looks much better in the new boost mode. And again, this boost mode came with the update that just released this week, beginning of the week, when Nintendo kind of dropped the handheld boost mode, which does consume some more power, but basically runs things in handheld on the Switch 2 as if they were running in docked mode on the Switch 1. And so you're getting things in 1080p, which made all of Ultimate Alliance look really good. Also played some Fire Emblem Engage, which looked great. It looked really crisp, bright, and it definitely was an improvement over what it looked like previously. So I've been really pleased with some of the results here. Going back to some of the other games if your game only rendered in 720p, it doesn't do a whole lot, right? Like the couple games, whether they were docked or handheld, still only capped out at 720, so it doesn't change a whole lot. But if it was able to run at 1080p in docked mode, it definitely makes a difference from what I'm seeing. So the last two games are big ones from Monolith Soft. So Tal, you've been playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2 recently on your Switch 2, and so I'm really curious to see what that looks like now with the boost.
Yeah, and just to go back, Road Redemption was the other one I had tried, which I didn't really see a huge difference. Like it might have been a little bit smoother, like as far as like the graphics, but I mean it wasn't like a huge difference as far as I could tell. And I had been playing that one on and off the past year or so. So yeah, but I'm playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Yeah, I had just been playing it a few weeks ago actually, and picked it back up here just to see because I saw online that it looked like Xenoblades were probably like the biggest change, like when you booted them up, and it is. It's once again, like you said, everything is brighter. Just everything looks like a lot like crisper. The shadows even looked a lot. I could tell a lot better. Like there's, you're riding on this big creature, so there's kind of stuff all around you, and kind of hanging over. And before I didn't really notice the shadows, but as soon as I booted up, I was like, whoa, this looks pretty good. Like the shadows just look great. The graphics themselves, I mean, like they look good, I guess. Like because it's in that kind of cell shading, so it never really looked bad to me, at least as far as I could tell. I never really saw any like jagginess or anything like that. It was usually pretty smooth as far as I could tell. But otherwise, yeah, it's looking really good so far. I was only in the one area, kind of little. I think one of the first towns you get to are kind of like cities. So I don't know after that how anything looked, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I thought it was a pretty big improvement from what had been, and it wasn't like it probably ran a little bit smoother, like just without the boost before. Like I said, graphically, it was like kind of okay. I didn't really see any big difference, but yeah, it definitely there's a change now going forward.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that change in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 as well. This was another game that I threw in that first week that I had a Switch 2, and it performance-wise, it ran fine in terms of frame rates because of the Switch 2's power. But oh, it was ugly. It was really kind of just fuzzy. Like it was not great resolution at all. It was even worse than Jaggy's. Everything just kind of had a real fuzz to it. Like I was playing it on an old CRT almost. And now booting it up. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is that one kind of fantasy-ish based, or is it more sci-fi like X's?
It's not as fantasy as 2, not as fantasy as 2, not as sci-fi as X. So it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little darker in terms of its character designs. Again, because of the theme of basically the characters or the armies in the war all have a date clock on them that they only live to a certain number of years. And so it's a little darker, but running out in the open world, it looks great. Lighting looks better. The character models look much better. The landscapes, still a little flat, but a whole lot better in terms of resolution. So it's doing what I wanted the Switch 2 to do, 8 months ago when it launched in June. Is it's giving new life to older games that didn't quite run as great handheld as they could. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what this, how this affects people doing Switch 2 patches, or if this is an escape hatch for people so that they don't have to do as many Switch 2 patches. There's some great comparisons out there on Nintendo Life, Switch Up, a variety of other places that are looking at lots of different games. Doom 2016, Outer Worlds, anything with a bigger open world is definitely seeing a benefit here in this space.
Yeah, it was. I should have gone back to Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I didn't even think about that because that was one that I think I did pop in when I first got the Switch 2, and I was like, yeah, it runs better. I guess that's kind of the thing too. Like some of these did at least run better. Like there wasn't as kind of like stuttery and stuff like that, but like the graphics weren't quite there as much as like you said, we probably wanted from the Switch 2. But looks like this is actually doing it. And I didn't really notice the battery thing usually because I have it when I'm home. I usually have it just plugged in anyways. Even if I have it handheld, I have it just plugged into the power, the power strip it comes with the power supply. I don't know if you played it without, if you noticed the battery at all draining faster than normal, or if you just have it plugged into.
No, I don't think I played it for more than an hour at a time for any one game. So, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense that it's running it faster because it's anticipating it being, it's treating it like it was docked and had a constant power supply. So
yeah, I think people said it was like maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes, maybe less than usual or so. So I guess that makes sense. But yeah, I definitely want to, like, even before when I first got the Switch 2, I was always into those videos where they're going back and seeing how these games run. But now it's really going to be interesting to see those type of videos, to see how the boost really helps. Game Logic, any questions? Did you do any Nintendo Switch 2 old school gaming this past week? You notice anything?
No, I did not.
But you did do some new Switch gaming, so
yes. If you want to jump into yours, unless you haven't, like I said, you had any questions for us.
Yeah, I was trying to chase down because it occurred to me as you guys were going through this, and I hadn't looked at it before. But I believe it achieves boost mode by using DLSS. I think that's the secret sauce that powers boost mode. And that would also make sense that the additional tensor cores engaged would lead to the battery life. So I think what it does, I'm not positive because I can't find any write-ups on this. The only things I've tracked down are videos of tech explainers, and and I didn't have time to read through the actual transcript. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have to hunt that down too, because my understanding of it was it forces a Switch 1 game to render as if docked.
Yes, but that's what triggers enabling DLSS.
Got it. Okay.
Because it thinks it's docked, and then the AIML kicks in to uprender.
But Switch 1 wouldn't have been docked though. I mean, Switch 1 docked didn't have DLSS.
No, that's what I'm saying. But the boost on Switch
because the
2,
boost does
right,
okay.
Taking Switch 1 games, telling the game telling the Switch that it is telling the Switch 2 that it's docked, and then to enable DLSS and then upscale and render at 1080p, despite the fact that it's still in handheld mode. Is that making sense?
It does make sense. I want to go back and dig around in that too, because my understanding was that it's treating a Switch 1 game and forcing it to render like it was docked on a Switch 1, not a Switch 2. But it could, I mean, that might not be, I may be misunderstanding it. So it actually, I mean, having it be DLSS makes a whole lot more sense in terms of, in a week where AI rendering in NVIDIA cards and, it got plenty of traction. This seems to be positive generation versus some of the other criticisms coming at it.
So that's why I brought it up. I know that there are friends of mine from the Discord I hang out in that I am having very vehement opposition to in their consideration of DLSS 5. And since we don't have DLSS 5 in the agenda tonight, I chose to take the opportunity to make a dig about that. This is yet again another implementation of MLAI in video games that no one is complaining about, even though people are complaining about DLSS 5. But I regress. So I'll move on to talk about Shadow Tactics, Blades of the Shogun on the Nintendo Switch 2, which is what I did play this week. I mentioned last week, that there were lots of things coming out this week, right? We said this was a big barn burner week, and I didn't have picking up Blades of the Shogun as a certainty. But the bug kind of bit me as we went into the weekend, and so I did grab it and pulled it down on Switch 2. Interesting thing. So I have never bought anything digitally, or at least it's been a while since I bought anything digitally while I was away from my Switch 2, and so two disappointing things. One, that Nintendo Switch Today. I mean, there's two apps, right? There's the Nintendo Today, and then there's the Switch app. Neither one of them have access. And I mean, I guess this is kind of a known, but it just irritated me in the moment. But neither one of them have access to the eShop, so you can't actually buy.
Because there's a separate store app.
Is there a store app?
There is they just came out.
Yeah.
Within the last few months, that there's a separate store app for. Yep.
Okay, I
guess
guess
three. I was going to say there's three apps, but there's actually four because then there's a parental control app too.
Well, and then you can throw in Nintendo Music. So
yeah,
I'm looking at my suite of Nintendo apps on my phone right now, and yeah, the Nintendo Store is a separate app.
And I used to give Xbox flack for having both the Xbox app and the discrete Game Pass app for a while on mobile. So yeah, I had to go into my web browser and log into the eShop and make the purchase because I was at a soccer game Saturday, and I was like, oh, but I want to play this when I get home. So that was disappointment number one. Disappointment number two was that even though I said like in the eShop gives you the option to start installing the thing after you buy it, when I got home, of course, there had been zero progress made towards installing it. When I turned on my Switch 2, it automatically went to the virtual card dialog menu. And I'm like, well, if you're gonna look, there's things that I like and are kind of good about the virtual card just in terms of organization, but for you to say, hey, go ahead and start the install, but then the system gets hung up because you've also implemented this virtual card thing, that's a problem. So at any rate, but at least, Nintendo Switch apps actually, at least on my Switch 2 on a wire, seems to still install faster than an Xbox app game on PC now, because I was reminded of you talking through that last week.
Yes, it does.
So I got it installed, got it going. This is a game that I played a little bit of on PC. I guess I put in about 10 hours on PC before I got distracted and never got back to it. But I really enjoy the game in terms of its style, and it's one of those games that this is again a thing that's great about the PC ports that come to Switch 2, right? Because it just offers an incredible array of variety available on that system. I did not play in handheld mode. I played in dock mode, so I have it hooked up, at 4K. And if you're not familiar with the gameplay, it is it feels and it kind of presents when you read through the ad copy, you might have the sense that it's kind of like a Fallout Tactics or like a turn-based tactics game, but it's not turn-based. It's real time. It is relatively slow, so to speak, in terms of it's a stealth game. So for the most part, people are just kind of moseying around right at their normal pace. They're not like scurrying about. So you have time. You have the ability to highlight an enemy so that you can see their view cone and be aware of the view cone. Has like four or five different modes to it. So it has a solid green for what they can actually see. It has a hashed green for line of sight and view cone where they can see, but only if you're like standing up. If you crouch, like they can't see you. It has and then so let's say you're in a green hashed part of the view cone and then you stand up, or that area of the view cone is also event triggered. So if like you take an enemy out that's in that hashed part of the view cone, they don't see you right away, but then it goes yellow and like the yellow line starts extending out from them. So you're kind of like on a timer. And then same thing for red. You get an array of characters. I think there's 5 in the base game. I haven't gotten around to all of them. I'm in the 3rd mission now. So you get a shinobi/ninja. You get a samurai warrior. You get a basically she plays like a thief, but she's trying to become a shinobi. So she's asking for the shinobi to be like her sensei. You get a sniper from the army, and then one other character named Ayoko who I haven't been introduced to yet. But each of them has like different skill sets and different, in essence, powers. They have their regular attack, but then they have a mix of special powers. So the shinobi, and all of them have like health packs that they can use. But the shinobi can like throw a rock so that it distracts enemies. And then there's certain of those powers that are distractions and certain ones that are lures. So when you distract an enemy, the ninja throwing the rock makes them turn around, but doesn't make them like patrol off their spot. Whereas the samurai can throw like a bottle of sake, and then if that enters like their view cone of a patrol, usually you throw it in somebody who's like moving around, then they'll see it and they'll try and come get it, so it lures them. Yuki, the wannabe shinobi, can both use like this bird whistle, and so that is also a lure, and then she can set traps. So you get access to all of these characters, like not all of them, but you typically get access to the characters like 2 at a time, and so you will, depending on the patrol patterns and the areas you need to transit through, and then you have verticality, right? So you can have them get on rooftops, and most troops can't see onto the rooftops, or they just never look up. But then certain ones can, and then eventually, as you get further into the game, you get to the point where certain enemies are actually stationed on rooftops like snipers, and so they can see across to other rooftops. So then that creates a problem. You have doors that you can go into certain buildings, and certain of those buildings will have doors that you can exit through, but certain buildings, it's just the one door, so you can kind of go in there for concealment and come back out. You can take concealment in the shrubs. And so all of this is a matter of kind of like, squeegeeing and crosswalking around through these different areas and taking different angles and different vectors, depending on who can view you. utilizing all their powers in aggregate to try and figure out how to get through an area. It is a game that recommends you save frequently. Like the game really nags you to save like every 1 minute, so that part of the gameplay is definitely trial and error. I've got Hayato in a shrub. I've got Yuki up on a cliff. I think what I can do is I can have Yuki blow her bird whistle. This guy is going to depart his patrol pattern and go look, and then he's going to expose himself around this corner of a rock, and then Hayato will be able to throw his shuriken and take him down. Right. So that's what I think I'm going to do. But when I actually do it, what I don't realize is, oh, there was actually a sniper over on another ridge that I didn't see who's got a line of sight to where I just took out, right, that one enemy, and now he set off the alarm, right? So I need to kind of go back. So it is fun. It's definitely kind of like a sandbox erector set type of effect. And it's really fun. Game's supposed to be about 20 to 25 hours. I think it's 23 missions or something like that. And most people report that it takes them about an hour per mission. So it all depends on how you want to go through it.
So is this the PC game that came out in 16, or is this an update to that?
Yeah, no, it's the 2016. There is a deluxe where you can buy that with the DLC that came out with it, but yeah, it is the 2016 game.
So
Sounds fun and interesting. Go ahead, Tao. Sorry.
So can you have like all the characters on there at one point, or just a couple at a time?
I'm not sure exactly how many it gives to you because I haven't got that far into the game. I will say I have the most I've had at one time has been 3. So like in the first mission, it's Henry mentions I played this before when they actually accidentally gave it away on Plus. In the first mission there was a point where I had control of 3 characters. So I had control of the shinobi, the samurai, and then the sniper. And so the sniper was able to, you had to use him, judiciously because he could take people down, but then, you have to do things like if that person is in a line of sight potentially of, another enemy, sure you can take them out, but then you're going to have to, use the shinobi or the samurai. You're going to have to use Hayato or Mugen to like rush the body, right, and pick it up and throw it in a shrub before it gets seen. So it's very much a game of very kind of elastic tightness of windows, right? So some windows will be loose and some enemies are kind of easy to take down without being noticed, but then some are kind of like crackerjack timing, like you got to use one character to lure them or distract them, one character to take them down. Mugen's power is he can rush and he can take down 3 enemies at one time. But it's a power that you have to activate like from a certain distance, right? So he basically needs to be like in a set of bushes, and then it's a very short range, and then you have to pinpoint like the center of the 3 people, and then he can rush into the center and take out all 3. So sometimes you can set that up, but sometimes you may need to like distract one of them or get them to turn or something like that. So it's just that constant monkeying and toying around with the timing of the given setups and the scenarios in the game to make things work. And there's a certain extent to which you can kind of play a Bogart. So all depending on the situation, because you remember like one of my things that I hate is stealth games where once you set off the alarm you are completely ineffective, right? And it's a little bit like that, but given the right tactical scenario, like if you're in an area that has, like I was in an area where there were like bushes and there were some carts, and so I was able to take some enemies down and then get around the cart so that I couldn't be seen, and then surprise some other enemies and then get into the bushes so I couldn't be seen. So there's different scenarios where you can survive the alarm being set off, and the alarm is on a timer, so it's kind of like I want to say, is it Metal Gear Solid that has like that notion of like the cooldown timer, that like once you get seen, then, yes, everybody rushes in, but if you hide in the cardboard box long enough, then, then they go away. It kind of has that type of effect as well.
Are you playing handheld or docked? And I'm just curious because it seems like there's a lot potentially going on with the UI in handheld and the size of the screen.
Yeah, so the UI isn't a problem. I'm playing in docked right now, but it's very interesting. Number one, this is maybe not the first game. I guess Metroid Prime 4 Beyond enables use of the mouse, but this is a game that enables use of the mouse, which I have not tried yet. But I'm definitely interested. It's not so much the UI, but there's just a lot, right? Each like I said, you will sometimes go through these sequences where you have to switch. You only have control. You can within a scenario you can have control of 3 or 4 characters, but it's cyclical. At any one moment in time, you only have control of one. So you will have to learn the digital gymnastics of getting control of Yuki, blowing her whistle, getting control of Yuki, having her go and set a trap, having her sneak into a corner, then flip her, and you can only activate one of their powers at a time, right? So trap is one power, and then you move her into a corner and then switch to her other power, which is the bird whistle. And then because the bird whistle has a limited range, you may have to left trigger, blow the whistle, and be exposed, right, in order to get within range for a person to hear it. And then you may have to slip her off into the bushes, right? Then you have to flip control to Hayato, and then maneuver him into position, flip his power to select the shuriken, and then be observing the view cones so you can wait until he's out of one of the line of sights and then throw your shuriken, right? Then you got to rush Yuki out to grab the body. So some of the stuff can get fairly complex. And yes, when you're trying to do all that on a controller, there are times when it can get a little overwhelming. And that's one of the reasons why the game recommends saving often. So I do want to try it out with the mouse to see if that makes things easier, because I do remember playing this on PC and just kind of, being in kind of flight sim mode, right? Hands dancing across the keyboard, quickly enabling all this stuff and switching in and out of modes and switching characters, and that being fairly easy. The other thing I'm interested to try out is, of course, because it enables mouse mode, that means that it should also work with a USB mouse, right? Plugged in, or USB-C, which I can't remember. I said I was going to order a USB-C mouse, and I don't remember if I ever ordered one, but and I'm sure I have an adapter somewhere, but I want to try that out as well. But for right now on controller, it's fine. Like I said, there's been 1 or 2 occasions where it gets a little, aggravating, but I learned my lesson about saving often, so it's working out fine.
Any touch control in this game? You use the touchscreen?
I haven't tried because I've just been playing it docked.
Oh, okay. That's right. Okay. DB, any other questions for this game? Okay. All right, let's jump into the main news headlines, segment 2, and Game Logic. We'll keep you on the mic with some Dragon Quest II remake. Well, actually, just some US February charts, actually, with Dragon Quest VII remake up there.
Yeah, sorry, just give me a second. It whenever the reader mode is enabled, it always shares the screen weird. Okay, so this news story over on the Gamer, Dragon Quest VII's remake makes February US sales charts. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined reported its fair share of pre-release controversy, unlike the HD 2D remakes of the first 3 titles in the legendary JRPG series, which have added a considerable amount of new content without yanking out virtually anything in the process. Reimagined, true to the title on the tin, is more liberal in its approach. In Japan, the game was bound to sell well. Regardless, in other territories, this might have harmed what would be somewhat modest sales, even in the best scenario. Thankfully, that doesn't appear to have been the case in the United States, or if the rather egregious removal of original version content did play a role, it only goes to show how well DQ7 could have done without the hampering. Circana's February 2026 charts are out, and the radically revamped 7th major installment did pretty well, all things considered. I'm gonna bypass that, and doesn't in reader mode it didn't present the chart. May not have it in the article. Does anybody have?
I didn't see the chart. No.
Yeah, it's not an article.
It talked about. Yeah, in the article you say, Resident Evil Requiem is number 1. You've got a number of games in between. Dragon Quest VII comes in at number 9. I think number 9 or number 7. Yeah, 9th. But again, I think it's higher than it in between a number of other kind of perennial games that Helldivers, FC, Madden, Battlefield. So no, I don't see the chart. I think it is, it's encouraging from a US sales standpoint that it at least ranked in the top 10, which, given that it's not, it's not DQ11, which was a big title and a bigger kind of full on open world, where this is a little more tight and constrained. I think that showing it up in the top 10 is a really good sign for the series and for the awareness of the franchise. And I think I've filled pretty much as much time as I can until you can get that. I think it's no surprise at all, right, that Resident Evil is the top game of February.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
trying,
I apologize.
pasting
Yeah,
in
sorry about that.
the chat, but it didn't come up for some reason.
Yeah,
It's weird.
I apologize. I went and just grabbed like the first headline that I found with those are kind of charts, and these are the February numbers, right?
Yeah, February 2026. Yeah.
Yep.
I got the chart in front of me. If you want to I can list the top.
Oh
10.
yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, so like I said, Resident Evil Requiem's number 1, NBA 2K26 number 2, Call of Duty Black Ops 7 number 3, Minecraft number 4, Helldivers 2 number 5, EA Sports FC 26 number 6, Battlefield 6 number 7, Madden NFL 26 number 8, Dragon Quest was number 9, Reimagined, and then number 10 is Grand Theft Auto 5, rounding up the top 10.
It's interesting to see Diablo 2 hit 13 after the release of the Warlock class, and the fact that Sons of Sparta, which was only a PlayStation, wow, that tells you about the reach of the PlayStation, right? Like Sons of Sparta, only a digital game, only on PlayStation, ends up at number 14.
Yeah, some of the newer stuff is like past the top 10. Mario Tennis number 11. My Hero Academia number 17, and then
well, and again, remember with Nintendo properties, you're not getting digital sales on Nintendo. So where Mario Tennis shows up is only dependent on physical copies.
Yeah. So there's a few other things to kind of call out in the tops. Like you said, Mario Tennis Fever, Red Dead Redemption 2 resurging. It was just 9th last. I feel like there's a weird renaissance going on with Red Dead Redemption 2, and I do not know what it is driven by. Maybe it's maybe there's a lot of people like me who like I could care less about Grand Theft Auto 6, but the only thing that makes me excited about GTA 6 is because I hope that it means the tech will be in place for them to do a Red Dead Redemption 3. So maybe that's what's driving it. Yeah, like you mentioned, Diablo 2 getting the new character. And so with Diablo 2 and 3, new classes were introduced like with an actual expansion pack. Was that the case here, or was it just like a character? I'm pretty sure they made you buy it.
No, it was for the Warlock class. It was, yes, it was a purchase. I think it was $24. I don't know that it came with like traditional expansion packs, right? With Blizzard, you get an addition to the story and another big bad to go up against. I don't know if that's the case in Diablo 2, or if it is simply just a character class. So
it would be weird if they went back and wired new content in Diablo 2, but I would be very salty about paying $25 just to play Diablo 2 Resurrected with a new character.
They did. One of the things they've done is if you don't own it at all, they've bundled it together with Diablo 2 Resurrected. So I think like combined, it's $40 now. Like looking at the shops, I can't go back and like the base Diablo 2 is no longer available for purchase.
Yeah. And that's in the past. That's when I've typically waited until like the big DLC drop where you could get like all the characters. Yeah, and you mentioned God of War: Sons of Sparta. This one's a super weird one. I mean, names as big as David Jaffe were out slagging this game to no end online, and yet here we are, right, with this game coming in at 14 as a console only exclusive, only selling on one platform. Just crazy. Forza Horizon 5 continuing to do well again off the strength of the PlayStation 5 deployment. Marvel Spider-Man 2 continuing to have high sell-through this many years after it came out. So again, a lot of these things give credence to the notion of what we've heard of PlayStation deciding to potentially no longer send its tentpole IP over to PC. Anything else that you guys wanted to pick out? I saw hardware numbers, but I didn't really consume them. Anything else on this list you guys wanted to talk about?
No, I think PS5 was top for February. I think that's actually the last couple months. It's been like that. So
yeah, they were top.
Months, actually,
they were top in revenue. I can't remember if it was units sold, but definitely top in revenue, and that's been the case since December. Nintendo Switch 2 was second, but the major thing is its sell-through continues to be in excess of Nintendo Switch Time-Allied. So I think there's a lot of impressions out there that it is not selling well outside of Japan. But again, it's ahead of Switch 2 as reported by Circana, which only covers America. So I don't know that belief that it's only selling well in Japan. I'm sorry, and I apologize if I said. I think what I was trying to say is there's a belief out there that it is not selling well outside of Japan, and I think that that's not the case based on the data that we're seeing.
Yep. All right. Do you want to jump into the next story here? New game announcements. So,
yeah, this is a guilty pleasure. So, yeah. I apologize for putting everyone through this one. But so if you've been around PC gaming as long as I have, you were familiar with this company called Microprose way back in the day. And in the 90s in particular, when Tom Clancy was at its height. And interestingly enough, yeah, I should have realized there was a Tom Clancy tie-in and tied this to a later article we're going to talk about, but I'll go ahead. But the height of the Tom Clancy thing, with like the Hunt for Red October, there were video games of this. EA was kind of, I guess it was a little bit ahead of their Jane's anthologies, but there were precursors to those Jane's anthologies like AH-64, Apache, F-19 Stealth Fighter, Airborne Ranger. There was one other sub. Hunt for Red October was a big one, but then there were also things like Fleet Command Harpoon. But these were all done by this company called Microprose. And Microprose really, Falcon 4.0, which was absolutely one of my favorite flight sims when I came back to PC in the early 2000s. And I had seen their name kind of crop up on some things. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I wasn't absolutely certain. I thought maybe they were kind of like Atari, where, the brand got sold around, or, it had never really necessarily technically gone out of business. It had just like stopped, most of its activity, but the brand was held by someone, or the trademark was held by someone. But at any rate, Microprose came back in like 2019, 2020. And now they're doing this game called Gunship Origins, which I thought was like directly in my wheelhouse. And there's really not that much to it, other than it looks like kind of an AH-64 Apache kind of looking game, and I don't think it has a release date. But anyway, this came across my radar. I thought it was super interesting, so I put it in the rundown. Gunship Origins is a modern combat helicopter game inspired by the golden age of military simulators. fly iconic helicopters, including the AH-64 Apache, OH-58 Kiowa Warrior, and U-860 Blackhawk in dynamic missions across connected battlefields. And what I'm actually hoping is, I'm kind of actually hoping this isn't super heady in terms of flight simi, because I think the audience will be so limited. So I don't expect like an Ace Combat kind of game, but I also don't want this to be DCS Flight Simulator, right? So something kind of in between, I'm hoping, is what happens. But man, I remember flying like super long missions in the AH-64 Apache and just going out and hunkering down like behind a hillside, and getting intel of like a tank column, like maneuvering through the valley and just waiting for them, and just like, but not having them on radar, and then popping up above that hill, just at the right moment to, quickly snap them on radar, and pickle off some Hellfire missiles. So super excited about this one coming out.
Nice. I mean, it doesn't say in the article, but I'm assuming they would have some kind of stick support, flight control support.
Yeah. Yes, I'm hoping so. I don't remember back in the day how. I guess the key thing with helicopters is that might warrant you investing in a set of pedals, because they're much more susceptible to like needing to rotate the helo around its vertical axis. So I don't know if I want to go that far down the pike, but we'll see. Who knows if this game is even going to be good? But I thought it's super interesting. It's also super interesting. What it caused me also to do is pull the thread on Microprose, and they've actually already published a handful of games. They're basically a publisher now instead of a game studio, where they are going out and finding studios that are doing kind of military sims, and then making publishing deals with them. So they have put out actually some naval combat games, as well as some other things that I'm gonna go check out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I played a Microprose game the past fall with Death by Scrolling, which was kind of an indie top-down kind of Zelda 3 like. Yeah. So yeah, they are just kind of out there publishing. Yep. So yeah,
Nice.
Death by Scrolling was a Ron Gilbert game, which was published by Microprose. There we go.
Nice.
To see Ramon Terrell checking in the chat. Thanks a lot. Mario Heat, thanks so much for stopping by. And I think you mentioned Innate and Thrifty and Henry.
Thrifty, yeah. Yep. Thanks for joining us. All right, Game Logic. I think you have one more here on some Microsoft improvements to Windows 11 coming up here. Hopefully, that they're going to improve some stuff. Game Logic, looks like your audio is not coming through.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. Okay.
Okay,
Thought it was just me at first.
Did you guys hear me say anything about this?
No, we didn't hear you say anything. Sorry about that.
Okay. Microsoft promises major improvements to Windows 11 performance, reliability, and updates, lower RAM usage, fewer Copilot interactions, and enhanced File Explorer incoming. Although we haven't asked for an official survey, it's a safe enough statement that trust in Windows, and by extension Microsoft, is at its lowest point since the crash-prone, insecure Windows 98 ME. What I mentioned by way of correction for that is number one, the lowest point for Windows was Windows Vista. Although Windows ME was right up there, Windows 98 should not be in that sentence whatsoever. Windows 98, especially second edition, was absolutely one of the best gaming operating systems that they had. going. And I mentioned this is why we should not let young people write news stories about technology that they weren't alive for. Despite a strong initial release, Windows 11's subsequent crapification, Windows 11 did not have a strong release. Absolutely, it did not have a strong. What is this? Despite a strong initial release, Windows 11's subsequent crapification turned users away, many of whom see the OS as a direct downgrade from the now unsupported Windows 10. The company published a surprisingly detailed blog post promising that the situation will change over the course of this year. In contrast to the usual buzzword-laden corporate promises, the article goes over quite a fair number of upcoming technical and interface improvements for Windows 11. These range from performance, that would be desired, overhead, that would be desired, and reliability improvements to efforts to make the main user interface less annoying. Reliability is not the problem with Windows 11. The problem with Windows 11 is that it nags the crap out of you incessantly for no reason, adding zero value. It is constantly asking you, do you want this? Do you want that? And I'm like, no, I don't want your help with anything. I don't need you to ask me to make Edge my default browser. I don't need you to ask me to enable BitLocker. I don't need you to ask me to set Edge to your recommended default settings. I don't need you to recommend that I turn on OneDrive to do backups. Like I literally have a box that I built 4 years ago, and I have it still asking me those same 3 questions. I apologize for people who've heard this joke before, asking me the same 3 questions like it's Rick Grimes asking, and I'm asking to become a member of the Survivors. How many walkers have you killed? How many humans have you killed? Why? Those things aren't going to change. So my big problem with this thing is, number one, why now? It's not like Windows 11 being crap is a new news story, right? It has been that way for a very long time. People didn't want to transition to it. That's why they had to force you to go to Windows 11 in the first place. So that's number one. Number two, the things that it's talking about doing, there's some of these that are good, but like there's a lot in here that I'm like, no, these are not the right answers. Fewer Copilot interactions. How about no Copilot interactions? That's what users actually want. So my fear and concern is what they are trying to do is they are trying to put lipstick on a pig before Project Helix and before the Steam machine hits and really starts swaying people away. The other thing that gives me a high degree of nervousness is what I don't see out here is my personal trigger point for what's going to cause me to abandon Windows, which is stopping trying to force people and cordon them into signing into their Microsoft account to enable setting up a Windows PC. That is fortunately, they have tried. As far as I can tell, those workarounds are still in place and are still usable. The moment I hear that they have cut all of them off, and they've done different variations of trying to cut them off, and then people have gotten them working again. But the moment I hear that those doors have been shut, I'm done. And I'm not done when it rolls out. I'm done when I hear that they're doing it months before it ever hits the street, because I'm not going to wait, because it's going to hit me a significant amount of time to flip over to Linux. But I've scripted and laid out a plan for me to convert all of my content creation over to the Mac and convert all of my gaming over to Linux. This, and I saw a few websites kind of pander this around as propaganda. This is so great, it's really flabbergasted. They're actually listening to users. No, they're not listening to users. If they were listening to users, this stuff would already be fixed. They're not listening to users. They're coiling up to make a competitive effort to stop the assault that's going on Windows. Because right now, on my MacBook M5, Resident Evil and Cyberpunk play with the bells and whistles turned on at 70 frames per second plus. So Mac is becoming not a huge offensive, but it's becoming, the M5 processor makes gaming on Macs viable. And it really, even despite through 4 iterations of Apple Silicon, it hasn't really been viable. You've been feeling like they're trying to get there, but the M5 chip pulls it over the edge and really makes it acceptable gaming, particularly when you talk about the high resolution displays that are on MacBooks. And then Steam has just been continuing to eat Windows's lunch. It makes absolutely no sense that you play a Windows game through an interpreter like Proton, and the game performs better than it does with similar hardware under Windows. What did you guys want to add?
No, I think between that and your silent rant at the beginning, I think that covers it.
I think he did that on purpose just so he can like work himself up so to really get it going. No, I mean, I agree with you because I have and I've never touched Linux in my life. I've downloaded a version of Linux that I'm going to hopefully, start just playing around with, in the meantime, just because I'm kind of at the same state, just kind of getting tired of Windows. And I don't like Mac either, to be honest with you, but I'd rather not switch over to that, but I'm, whatever, I have to start like expanding my horizons though, because I do work with Macs a little bit for work mostly. I used to do a lot of video editing on the Mac before I found some software on Windows side, but yeah, even I'm like starting to look for other things. And like I said, I've never touched any kind of Linux stuff before, so it's gonna be totally brand new for me. Just learning that whole OS, but I mean, hopefully they can turn it around. I mean, I don't know if that's obviously they're not dead in the water right now. They're still one of the biggest out there, but there's starting to be some chinks in the armor. So and obviously they're probably starting to see that. DB.
Yeah, I don't know that I have any more to add. So I appreciate everybody in the chat of like the excitement over Linux and the disgust over Microsoft. So
and Ramon brings up a good point. They already forced you to sign in to play some of their games, and that's been causing problems. And yeah, I've been bitten by that. And it's to make things level, I don't know if PlayStation has this. Like, well, no, I do know if on at least with older games. So for Marvel Spider-Man on PC, I'm trying to think if I have Spider-Man 2. Well, for Miles Morales on PC and Spider-Man, if you don't sign into your PSN account, it does not keep you from playing the game. It just keeps you from accumulating points and hours or whatever against your PSN account. But on Xbox games on PC, if you have those Xbox games on Steam, if you don't log in to your Xbox account, you can't play the game. And that's a problem, because there are times, like I said, I mean, I haven't even gone back to check, but like in December timeframe, I became unable to log in to my Xbox account through my Steam games. And so my Steam games that I've paid for by Xbox, the publisher, I can't play on Steam. I don't want to say
you can't log into them.
Yes. Yeah. We talked about it on the show a little bit. Like on December 5th, I was able to log in to my Xbox account and played Halo Infinite on PC. 2 weeks later, on December 19th, I was not able to log in to my Xbox account. So I could not play Halo Infinite through my Steam account. I had actually stopped using that Xbox app on PC and was doing everything I could. In fact, I had basically retired it and had said, that's why I bought those games on Steam, because I said, I hate this app and I'm not going to use it. And I don't want to say that it's Machiavellian, but it's very strange, right? That I can't log into my games on Steam, thereby forcing me back to using the Xbox app. I'm sure they didn't do that just for me, but that's it's a problem when that is a hard wired barrier to you being able to play a game, so best of luck to them on turning Windows 11 around, but like it's a serious slog uphill. I remember the whole reason that they did Microsoft Surface was because internally they had gotten tired of MacBooks owning all the mindshare. We didn't even used to talk about mindshare at this time, like in the early like 2010 timeframe, 2011 timeframe, when Panos Panay became in charge of Windows devices. But but there was internal angst that, like, despite the fact that they own like 97%, 98% of desktop and laptop market share in terms of operating system, that everyone could talk about, and the only thing people would write news articles about was Macs. And so Microsoft Surface was kind of started off as a revenge project. And here we are now, a decade later, and there was some initial success with Surface, but like, again, nobody talks about the Mac. And quite frankly, if it hadn't been for those Johnny Ive years after Steve Jobs passed away, when he was in charge of hardware, and Johnny Ive did not care about the Mac in the butterfly keyboard years, that entered an era where people were offboarding from MacBooks and went back to Windows, particularly creatives, because they couldn't get what they wanted. Had there not been kind of that loss, we might even, Windows might even be in a worse place now. So I don't know. The notion that they're going to turn Windows, let me just say it. I don't think they're going to turn Windows 11 around. I think they're going to need to do what they typically do when they lose the plot with an operating system, and do Windows 12. and that's their best chance, right, to bring themselves to dig themselves out of this hole.
Yep. All right, let's jump into our next news story here. I believe that is yours, DB. End on a downer, as usual.
Yeah, just one more of another series of layoffs. But yes, as Game Logic alluded to, so this is a Tom Clancy tie-in one. So Red Storm out of North Carolina. Red Storm was the original developer for Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six back in the late 90s. They went on to do both the Ghost Recons and some more Rainbow Sixes over time. Then they, after, it really hasn't been a Rainbow Six or a Ghost Recon the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 generation. During that time, Red Storm was developing Werewolves Within for VR and Star Trek Bridge Crew. They also did the Assassin's Creed VR game in 2023. And what I didn't realize is that they were the lead on the Division Heartland, which was the free-to-play Division kind of multiplayer game that was canceled in 2024. So Red Storm, it's 100 some people, 105 is what the news article at Video Games Chronicle has. Yeah, I mean, it's a long-standing kind of historic developer with people who have played PC games back into the 90s will definitely remember setting up their squad to breach a door and having things go awry with Rainbow Six. So I think one of the things that I am curious about, and this is it's not necessarily a conspiracy hat piece, but I think one of the things that I do wonder about, given Ubisoft and given European Union and European kind of Britain layoff requirements in terms of the amount of notice and the other steps, where it's a lot easier to do that in the United States. And so, it does talk, this article also talks about Ubisoft laying off, proposing to eliminate about 200 jobs at its Paris headquarters. And some confirmed layoffs at one of its Toronto studios as well. So, a couple of months ago, we talked about Ubisoft's kind of realignment into their kind of game pillars and different buckets. And one of the concerns at that time was if it makes it easier to kind of cut off developers and houses, which is too bad from a creative standpoint. It also is really, Ubisoft's not in a great financial place. So in order for them to get somewhere, I at least knew that there were going to be a series of layoffs coming, and it's probably, we're not done with other studio closures at Ubisoft either.
Yeah, I saw I think a couple of different companies this past week doing layoffs, kind of smaller and larger ones. So this was kind of surprise just because I guess I didn't realize they had done a lot of the VR games recently. I did play Star Trek Bridge Crew, which is an excellent VR game actually. It was a pretty fun game. I never played Assassin's Creed, so I don't know. I heard good things about it, but just never got around to it, and I never even heard of War Was Within, so I don't even know what that was. But it's
Worlds
interesting they
Within
kind of.
was it's based on kind of the real life game of kind of mafia or things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even know that they had kind of just switched totally to VR stuff. So it's interesting, but yeah, it's a bummer because it was a good studio back in the day. Those original Rainbow Six games they were hard. I couldn't at the time. I just couldn't wrap my head around the gameplay just because I wasn't used to it. But um, still, it was pretty fun though, along with the Ghost Recon stuff. But I don't know, Game Logic, if you had any comments.
Yeah, this one hits me, kind of right in the chest. I mean, look, I don't feel good, obviously, about any studio shutting down. But I also just don't like, just because of the type of, like, I don't emotionally gush like for every single studio that where there's layoffs or gets shut down. Like, I just can't do that kind of performative thing on air or on social media. But I will say there has been this is the third one that kind of hit me personally from in terms of a team who's always done things that I love. Turn 10 was one of those. When WB schwacked Monolith Entertainment, that one hit me pretty, because I like the Lift Tech engine, and No One Lives Forever and No One Lives Forever 2 are absolutely two of like my favorite video games of all time, and they've been in licensing hell, and now we're probably never going to see that IP come back. Man, Red Storm, jeez, like, so when I came back to PC gaming, one of my big things was I was in training for about 5 or 6 months. Had some really good buddies, and we used to, like, every day after class and drills, they would come over and hang out at my apartment. I had like a little LAN set up in my apartment. I had like three or four PCs. I had Rainbow Six Rogue Spear loaded on all of them, and we would play like co-op campaign and terrorist hunt. I mean, 4 hours for like 6 hours at a time. We would order pizza. We would have Mountain Dew, Doritos, like the whole big gamer shtick. And it was just an amazing time, and I like stuck with that franchise through all the years, and the ones people didn't like, Raven Shield, and all that stuff. And then when Ghost Recon dropped, we would play Ghost Recon as well. And I remember like the original Ghost Recon, in the big outdoor environments, and the long range things, and like trying to get around the map, and like your threat radar, trying to figure out what position like is the threat actually in, and like using your squads to kind of try and triangulate where these threats were coming from, and like negotiate your way across the map, and then trying to get the drop on guys, and using your sniper in their ghillie suit to like try get the element of surprise and stuff. Like, it was just I don't know that there's any singular game that really has ever franchise that's really ever struck as loud a chord in the tactical maneuver of warfare, at the squad level, as Red Storm. And again, and I have a I have a very tight relationship with Tom Clancy, and that mythology, just in terms of like the time of my life I was at and the stuff I was doing. So yeah, it's tough, to see. And I know, and I've felt bad about the whole Red Storm situation for a very long time. two of my favorite studios are Massive Entertainment is absolutely one of my top 5 favorite studios of all time. I would have said the same about Red Storm, a few years ago. Ubisoft bought Red Storm in 2000. They bought Massive Entertainment in 2008. And since they bought Massive Entertainment, there has been a concerted effort, it seems, to... It's quite clear that Ubisoft has been happier with Massive Entertainment than Red Storm. They subordinated Red Storm to Massive. They kind of had Massive take over like a lot of the IPs that Red Storm was working on. They kind of became like the parent studio, and Red Storm, became like the support studio. And so it's kind of sad to see that thing come full circle to a point where they're just kind of winding the whole thing down. On the business side, the reminder, Ubisoft, as you mentioned, DBQ, they're trying to get to a reduction of 200 staff is what they're trying to get to. And this will be 50% right of that reduction. And you're right, DBQ, given the resistance they're encountering in trying to wind people down in the Paris staff, and they already took a schwack out of Massive Entertainment and I think 2 other studios maybe in Switzerland. They're definitely doing it right in areas where, I hate to say it, they can get away with it, and they can get it executed, faster than they can in some other places. So, it's sad, but hopefully on the upside, hopefully maybe where they're getting to a point where they're getting to the numbers that they need, and we'll hopefully maybe see an end to this. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely we'll see as we go forward here throughout the year. All right, gentlemen. Anything else in the news you wanted to talk about before we jump into our round robin?
No, we backdoored in the Switch patch and the DLSS NVIDIA 5 stuff, or DLSS 5. So yeah, I think we've covered all the stuff, whether it was on the agenda or not.
Nice. All right, so let's jump into segment 3 with our round robin, regular rundown. Clean up here. Myself and Mr. Game Logic have been playing Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Real quick, I was still trying to play the new, I think it's called the Black Ops Battle Royale mode, which is kind of akin to the Blackout Battle Royale mode they had originally back a few years ago. I don't know. I couldn't get into it. I've just been playing the multiplayer now, pretty much exclusively. And just having, fun with that, and just kind of getting back into it, because I forgot to mention last week, I forgot how easy it is to get killed in Call of Duty multiplayer, just how fast you get killed. So I've been trying to retrain myself, get my reflexes going again, and I've been getting pretty decent now. I've finally been getting back to where I was before I had stopped playing. It's been a while too since I played 6. I hadn't played that for a long time, so kind of getting back into it. And some of the levels, a lot of levels are actually that I've noticed, especially this one that's kind of older, from the older series. So
I think so. This is Slums. I think Slums actually started in Call of Duty Mobile.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I mean, that's, say what you will about like the acquisition and everything. I will say one of the things I have enjoyed is, and it's not necessarily driven by the acquisition, but that's just kind of like the timeline. I do enjoy when the cross-pollination of maps, where like I'm seeing maps in big boy Call of Duty that I played on Call of Duty Mobile, and vice versa. Sometimes I'm not that like that. So the Nuketown that is in Call of Duty now is the Nuketown map from Call of Duty Mobile, and I don't like that Nuketown map, right, in comparison to like the traditional Nuketown map. I also, you mentioned last week
Firing Range.
Firing Range. I don't like the new rendition of Firing Range.
Yeah.
I like the old. I think it was in Call of Duty Black Ops.
It was I think the original Black Ops.
Yeah. So, not Call of Duty Black Ops. Call of Duty Cold War. And I mean, and I think that was a retread of the old Black Ops. But like that was the last Nuketown. That was the last firing. What was it? Firehouse.
Firing Range.
Firing Range. That was the last one that I like that version. I don't like the new version. But you mentioned a couple maps last week, but then I started playing this week, and so I went back to Call of Duty actually partially because of you bring it up last week, and I was like, oh, I think I'm ready to go back. There's a couple things now that I really don't like though, because of the wall running mechanic. So typically when I die and respawn, my fingers are already on the keyboard at sprint. And what happens in this thing with the wall running crap is when I respawn in a jump. And on firing range, you often respawn in this interior building. So what happens is for the first 3 seconds, I respawn in a jump and I'm like bouncing off the walls. Really aggravating, right? Because I'm trying to get back to the fight. And like for the first 3, I don't have an ability. I don't have an ability, but B, I don't think I want to. I'm not interested in like disciplining myself to like, okay, on this one map, I need to not have my fingers on the keyboard where they normally are, where I respawn like everywhere else. So that's particularly aggravating. The other thing that's aggravating is in the armory screens. I hate, and I've hated this since this version more than any version that I've seen before, and I think it may be just on this version. The armory screens switch what loadout screen you're on just based on a mouse hover. So if you happen to just mouse across the top where the loadouts are, whether you click it or not, your screen will switch to that loadout. And so I don't know how many hundreds of times I have started modifying a loadout to then look up and realize, like, I'll hit, I'm like, what? Wait, hold on a second. Like, I didn't have this tactical arm. Like, what's going on? To look up and find out that it has arbitrarily shifted me into a new loadout. And sometimes that really screws things up, because maybe I had a weapons configuration that I actually liked and I was happy with, but because I was clicking through so fast, I've actually just like swapped out like 2 attachments before I realized this thing has flipped to another loadout. So I despise that in the UI. Like, I don't know why they didn't just leave it to where you have to like actually click into a loadout to actually get the screen to shift. It's really aggravating, but despite that, I'm actually having fun. Going back. So like you said, harsh startup getting back to it. But I've had a lot of really, really good matches. It'll be interesting to see what they do next year. I personally, I know I'm going to say it, and I know people aren't going to like it. I actually hope they go back to SBMM. I'm absolutely convinced that a large part of the reason for the player drop off isn't just because of price and Game Pass and all that. I think it's because they only have one SBMM mode, and that SBMM mode you have to play the objective stuff. So you can't play SBMM and lock it to kill confirm, TDM, FFA, and just the combat only modes. You have to play domination and hard point, right, and this other stuff that so we'll see. I know they claimed, oh well, we took SBMM off and everybody wanted to play those modes. I'm like, yeah, did you think that maybe because you had enabled that for a trial and had never done it before, that there were a ton of people who were interested about playing something that was new? Like, they enabled it for the demo and the trial periods, and then leapt to this conclusion that it was like the no build mode effect on Fortnite. And I'm like, okay, but like, they literally ran no build mode on Fortnite for a full season before they decided that they were going to leave it as a permanent instantiation, right? Like, maybe you guys need more telemetry and more data.
Yeah, it's like 2 different modes, so it's not like they just like got rid of the build mode and just left it there. So yeah,
right. And the no build mode sits at parity with the build mode. Like, it's not, but here they have like 9 non-SBMM modes and like 1 SBMM mode, and it's a limited SBMM mode in how much you can configure it. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and just a few other things I've noticed now when I've been playing. As far as the maps, I do like how it seems to be a good mix of like the newer maps and the old ones. So I like that. It seemed in 6 like once they started introducing then like the older maps throughout the seasons, like it always would be just those like all the time. Like it didn't matter. Here it seems to be like a good mix of kind of both, which is nice. The guns looks like the the LMG is not as good as it has been in past games. I've noticed, or at least I don't know. Maybe I'm just not getting the attachments I need. But it seemed even when I was like the bare default LMGs, I was able to be pretty good. And this time it just seems like wow, it's I don't know if they just like lowered the the kill ratio or something, or like I don't know what they did, but it just seems like it's a little off. But on the flip side, it looks like they've done something with the shotguns. Those seem to be a lot more better than especially from the last game from 6. Like I barely used shotguns after a little bit. Like I was just like, all right, I'm done with shotguns because it never seemed like I was able to get any eliminations on anybody, barely at least. So that's kind of nice. And in past games, I know it was kind of like that in the first place. Like shotguns are usually pretty powerful, and then they kind of just fell off over the last few games. But it looks like those are back, so that's nice. Even with just like the default one, I don't think I've unlocked any of the other ones yet. I don't think, but yeah, I'm just kind of having fun getting back into the groove of it. So it's been kind of nice.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll mention is what I do like about this season, about this year, is weapon skins seem to be a little more egalitarian, right? In the way that they're giving those out. You don't necessarily earn them faster. So number one, I'm just not prostituting myself for weapons unlocks like I have like the last few years. Like I'm just not like a grubbing, sweat when it comes to weapons unlocks and trying to unlock like everything and measuring like how well I'm doing by how many I've unlocked. That's just too hard a life to lead. Now what I do when I prestige and it resets, like I pick, one assault rifle and I just stick with that assault rifle until I max it. And then when I get overkill, I make a second loadout, right? And I, pick a different, and I'm also not trying to like unlock or max everything. Like, so right now I have like 3 loadouts. I have 1 assault rifle, and then when and like I said, when I get overkill, then I switch it up. So I have like 1 assault rifle and a marksman rifle, and then I have another loadout that's a submachine gun and a marksman rifle. I just got what is the one that gives you 8? You can put 8 attachments on. I think it's not gunsmith.
Yeah, I think I just unlocked that one too. Where you can do extra attachments.
I think it's gunfighter. Yeah.
Gunfighter.
So yeah, so so like I said, I do 1 additional loadout when I get overkill and another loadout when I get gunfighter. And maybe I'll do another, but like I'm not, and in gunfighter I have it's another SMG. It's an SMG and then just a pistol because you can't do a main. With that, you just throw 8 unlocks. So, but what I do like about the skins is that when you unlock prestige skins become universal, so that even though you got them unlocked for prestiging one particular weapon, once you earn that skin, you can use it on any weapon. And you can use it on any weapon like as soon as you have that weapon available. Like you do, like it's not like level dependent. So I do like that lets you at least have a few skins, that aren't like the ashy, ghetto skins that you get when you first get a weapon. There's also I think maybe when you unlock when you get skins from armory blueprints, I think you can. I don't know if there's unlockables. Like there's some skin that I have that was like a I can't remember what the name of the term is for the skins that like change appearance. Like they're not dynamic. Maybe they're dynamic skin. There's something where where they glow and like the lights move on them. I can't remember.
Like a reactive skin.
Reactive skins, yes, yeah. And there's some that I think you can apply to multiple weapons as well. So that at least is a little nicer.
Yeah, just going back to the wall running for a second. Like I don't even really notice it unless it's like built into a map. Like if there's like a gap and you have to like wall run to get past that gap. Otherwise, I don't even think I really use it all too much. Like especially in the kind of the older maps, just because I guess they're not really built like the one you were just playing Slums out, so you can't really wall run too much. There's some walls maybe you can jump over, but Otherwise, it's like, and even the kind of omnidirectional button, like I'm not even really using that as much as I did in 6, and I don't know why, because I used it a lot in 6. It's kind of weird, but maybe just because I've been gone for so long, I'm kind of more in that old school like Call of Duty mode and not the 6 mode. But yeah, that's just kind of weird that I don't use it that much anymore.
Yeah, actually, the last map I would have meant, I think it's called Fractured. That is one that I like. It's like a roadway highway map. And it has the, I call them the Banff portals, the mother boxes, you can go through the walls and you reappear somewhere else. So it has a couple of those, but that's one that actually wall running like makes a difference, because they have like a couple sections of highway that have been twisted so they're like vertical. So it actually makes sense. It makes gameplay fun. So yeah, I mean, there's places that like I don't dislike the wall running. It's like super interesting to be on Nuketown and like those 2 buses that are in the middle, to like hit those and wall run and ping like air jump between like the 2 of them and cross that chasm. In general, I'm better with wall running. Like I have less of a problem with wall running than I had with Omni movement. In the Omni diving and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, I just hate how it acts like on that one map when you spawn in an enclosed space. And I'm bouncing off the walls for like 5 seconds before I can get moving back to the fight.
Yeah, I hope they bring back some of the Call of Duty 3 maps, because those were kind of built for that when they did have it in there. Like they had a lot of maps that you had to use. Well, not had to, but it was beneficial if you used the wall running. So hopefully they'll bring those back at some point this year. Real Nate looks like he has a question here. If y'all have time, because I always heard Tao say he goes back to 47 games. Yes, I do go back to a lot of games a lot of times. So my question for everyone is, what is the last game everyone completed? Oof.
Yeah, I'll take this one, because Innate and I talk a lot, so I kind of know what Innate's getting at. So I'm gonna try and say this diplomatically without sounding overly salty. Like I get that a large political party of social media is oriented around game completion, and then that vibes in a certain way with like certain factions online. What I'll say about us on this staff is the industry data shows that not a lot of people complete video games, right? Steam data shows that the vast majority of gamers don't complete it. And Joseph Ferris talked at GDC a few years ago about like this dissonance within the game design domain, where there's this huge emphasis on replayability, and then there was I think it was a Microsoft guy and one other large publisher guy who were talking about industry data and telemetry, and then Joseph Ferris in a later interview said, we do all this stuff about replayability, and the industry data shows that like people don't go back and like replay games, like if they're doing stories, that there's not a lot of replaying. So I think this is one of these instances where there's a voice track that doesn't necessarily harmonize with the way the wider, greater population actually approaches games. So we're just not part of we're just not oriented around in that manner. We play a lot of different games because we like seeing lots of different game mechanics. I think at least Hal and I, we are more mechanically oriented than we are story oriented. Unfortunately, Swiss is no longer on the show as a regular. Swiss is definitely a person who is much more story oriented. It was much more built around this notion of playing a game from beginning to end. But to be quite honest, like the thing that makes me happy personally about playing games, if I play 24 different games in a year and I experience lots of different game mechanics, that's more important to me than experiencing 24 different stories. And the last game that I played was that I played to completion was The Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon. But but that, for me personally, that experience of experiencing lots of different game mechanics is more important to me than experiencing story. That's just like video games and stories is just not. I mean, Expedition 33, incredible story, but like the story of Expedition 33 is like a once in a million, achievement, in video game story. Like your average video game story isn't that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'll say, I think, the last game, I think you said it well, Game Logic, in terms of we are intentional about trying to have a breath. I know I'm intentional about trying to try a lot of indie games for the sake of highlighting things. The last like brand new release that I finished I'd go back to Donkey Kong Country Bonanza. The last game I finished was last month when I finished Final Fantasy II Pixel Remastered. But again, it's Final Fantasy II, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about it here. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, if I wasn't doing this podcast, I'd probably be more inclined to spend more time individually with games and push through things rather than to try to have a breath for the sake of conversation.
Yeah, actually, surprisingly, I finished 2 games last year, which the one was Mortal Kombat 1, which is, it's a fighting game, so that doesn't really, I guess I finished it, the campaign mode. And then the other one was Pokemon Legends Z through A, which is probably a lot bigger, a lot bigger game. And for me, at least, it's something's really got to hook me into a game for me to finish it. Whether it's story, gameplay, just, something's got to hook me up. And I think that's kind of probably for everybody. But I mean, it's really got like hardcore, got to hook into me because obviously we're us three at least, we're all adults, we all have families and all these responsibilities and stuff. So it's a little hard for me to just sit down for especially like a single player game and just like kind of run through it. The thing with obviously with Pokemon and even Mortal Kombat 1, because they were both on the Switch, I'm able to just sit there, for a couple hours each night and, do that. And obviously on the weekends, maybe sometimes I get a little bit more time, depends. Like right now I'm super busy. I've actually been going to sleep even earlier normally than on the weekends just because I have stuff I have to do the next morning with my son or whatever. So it's hard, it's hard to find that time to sit and find those games to actually beat. And that's why I say it's really got to hook me. That's why I kind of gravitate toward like Call of Duty, Battlefield, 6, Fortnite, because it's just quick, at the most 20 to 30 minutes, that I jump in, play a couple of games, and I'm out. So it's pretty easy. And even less, lesser extent, Rocket League, because that's 10 minutes that takes out of my time, at a time. So, but yeah, I did. Surprisingly, I completely forgot I beat those games, but I did beat those games last year. Kind of going into this year too, I think, with Pokemon.
Yeah, and just to throw a little more log on the fire. So, I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, when I was single, my clock time for gaming was typically, I want to say like 34 hours a week, and now I'm lucky, extremely lucky if it's 18. And I think I've mentioned on this show, right? So if a game is 36 hours, like I'm not the type of person who's going to play one video game for 2 weeks solid. That's just not going to happen. We're all multi-platform gamers too, right? So I know I've mentioned on the show, I have extreme hardware anxiety. Like when I come down here into the game room and I see a piece of hardware that I haven't touched for like 2 weeks, like, my skin starts itching, right? Like, so that's it's a challenge, right? It's a constant thing. I'm constantly, trying to rebalance the algorithm that, determines, where I'm going to spend time gaming. Cause, I don't like leaving things alone. And then on top of that, you throw in I started really like hardcore, I really started focusing on live streaming like in 2014. So 2014 to 2000, really until this generation. And then Tao, you were kind of built in the same ilk. Like Tao and I we've been gas gamers, right? Like, so, for the most part, and Tao and I talk about that all the time, how like it's a struggle. Like how are you part of this community that like rotates around from Battlefield to Destiny to Call of Duty, to, Left 4 Dead, right? And plays all these things. And when you're live streaming, right, you like, that's the content, right? And you guys know the whole thing of how it's tough to like kind of break out as a variety streamer. Apex Legends, so how do you play that stuff, Fortnite, and then find time to put 33 hours into an Expedition 33, right? It's almost an impossible task. So that's just where we are. I hope that kind of conveys look, I'm not telling you guys to not come watch the show, but if you want to come to the show to hear a lot of spoiler castery type of stuff of we finished this game, we finished that game, we finished this game, we finished that game. I don't know, but by the same token, we, like Tal said, we finish stuff that sometimes we don't talk about just because the week we finish it, maybe we're not on the show. I finished, Star Wars Squadrons, the single player campaign, Doom, the Dark Ages. I don't know. Both of those things I completed in December, and we were doing superlatives, so we never talked about those things right on the show that I rolled credits on those. So yeah, it just is what it is. I'm sorry. So go ahead, Tal. You had more in your rundown.
No, DB, did you have anything? I thought you were gonna chime in.
No, we're good. I think I appreciate the fact that I'm watching the comments and it's a good conversation to have, right? I don't believe there's a right or a wrong answer to it. As long as you're enjoying what you're playing, that's the right answer, right? If I felt like I had to finish something because it was a job, I'm going to burn out on that, right? And everybody else in chat who's had kids as well and who's a parent, yeah, your time is, as someone who has kids who are now in their 20s, I've spent 20 years picking and choosing when I can play, and I choose the things that I find enjoyment out of, and sometimes that's a long play session, or at least a lot of small play sessions in an RPG, or sometimes it's just a trial piece to be able to kind of sample something new.
Yeah, definitely. So real quick here, just because of time, I'm gonna actually go backwards here on my list real quick. Pokopia, I've been playing obviously on Nintendo Switch 2. Just kind of, and I haven't really played a whole lot except for these last couple days. I wanted to play a little bit more during the week, but I just didn't have time. Once again, because I didn't have time. So just kind of, I'm still in that second area that I had unlocked. I actually went back to the first area. I'm trying to, I think it's up to level 10 you can get to for each area that you unlock. So I'm trying just to max out that first area first if I can. I think maybe I might have to go into some of the other areas to get certain things so I can unlock certain Pokemon. So I'm doing that. I jump back into Palworld again. Actually, I had done that a few weeks ago with my son. This time I'm on a Discord server that does well, they do the game of the month, but they do also a dedicated server of about every quarter or so. So this quarter they're doing Palworld, so I jump back into that. So I'm going to be playing that probably in the next few weeks or so, or next couple months. Which is, some of them were kind of questioning that one because they know that the 1.0 is supposed to come out sometime this year, and so they didn't know if they wanted to do that. And I was like, well, let's just try it out. It's a good kind of comparison to if you're playing it now. Supposedly it's supposed to be a big changes to once 1.0 comes out, so that'll be a good comparison. And then I was playing that on PC, but a lot on my Steam Deck too. Speaking of hardware, I haven't touched it in a long time. Game Logic, I haven't really played anything much on that in a while, so I was playing Palworld on that. It runs pretty well on there actually. And then while I was on there, actually just last night, I was just kind of looking around at games. I was like, oh, Dragonball Spark and Zero. I saw I had that on there, so I jumped back into that, which is basically just retelling once again, because all these Dragon Ball games kind of do that. They retell the different Dragon Ball storylines. So I'm on Majin Buu Saga right now with Goku, and I think you can play. I think it's 6 or 7, maybe even 8 characters you play throughout the game that you kind of pick and go through. So I'm playing just Goku right now and going through his storyline. So I'm probably about halfway through the Majin Buu Saga. So I think, as far as the anime was, I think that was the last one I had, the last saga I actually watched. I think it goes into GT after that, so that'd be pretty much new stuff for me going past that. So I'd be interested to see that stuff, along with I think some Super Dragon Ball Z Super storylines too are in this game. So anything else you guys had questions on or want to talk about for as far as games? No. All right, so let's round round off the episode here with significant releases for the coming week. Got March 25th. We got Warframe on the Switch 2, and I'm assuming that's just like the Switch 2 edition, because I know the Switch 1 had Warframe on it. March 26th, we got 3 games here. We got Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Nintendo Switch 2 edition, plus Meetup in Bella Bell Park. I think that's how you say it. Also, Kena Bridge of Spirits on Switch 2. That was originally on
That was a
PS5?
PlayStation 4. Yeah.
A 4.
And then a PS5 version. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, PS5. Okay. Was that on PC too? Or was it just
It eventually came to
PlayStation?
PC. It started on Epic as an exclusive and then came to Steam. Yep.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember that now. All right. And then the final game for March 26th, Virtua Fighter 5 Revo World Stage coming for Nintendo Switch 2, excuse me. And then finally on March 27th, we got Life is Strange Reunion coming for PC, PS5, Xbox Series S and X. So a lot of stuff coming out. So anything you guys are interested in on any of those games? DB?
No, not really. The Mario Wonder, right? I want the Switch 2 enhancements for it, but I don't want to pay $20 for what is basically a multiplayer. Like, again, if my kids were 10 years younger, yeah, we'd have a lot of fun with this. Kenna is great, but
the Meetup in Bella Bell Park is a multiplayer
it's all
expansion, or?
multiplayer stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
And then a few added characters, like a couple of added characters into the main game. So, but no new, not that I'm aware of, not a lot of new single player content. So,
Okay. Game Logic, anything catching your eye here?
I'm gonna try and abstain, but you know, as I'm getting back into gas games, a little bit of an itch for Warframe. And I want to say, I think what drew me into Warframe in the first place was when it came to OG Switch. I don't think I ever messed with it on other platforms before, but when it came to Switch, it gave me some interest, and that's when I onboarded. And then because I was such a Sega kid, Virtua Fighter 5 Revo World Stage on Switch 2 also kind of feels a little interesting. But we'll see. I'm planning on playing. I've got about 12 more hours at least that I want to put into Shadow Tactics. So it won't be until after I get at least 3/4 of the way or so through that game.
Nice. Yeah, I think I played the demo of the Virtua Fighter 5. I believe they had the demo for that when it was announced. So maybe I probably won't pick it up this week, but eventually that'll be one of my new 47 games I'll get in the future. So that is it for today's episode. Thank you everybody who joined us in chat. Real and Nate, Ramon, I think here we're down there. Actually joined us here at the end. Henry Heck, Thrifty, Mario. Thanks you all for joining us. Next week, primary host will be DBQ Hams, and I actually will be out, so it'll just be Mr. Game Logic in the co-pilot seat. So once again, thank you, gentlemen, Game Logic and DBQ Hams. Any last words before we head out? No? All right. So that has been episode number 429. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, everybody out there, if you listen to us or watch us later on the video on demand or in audio. Please catch us next week. Should be same time, 8 o'clock Eastern on Sunday. Everybody have a good week. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.